It's Thursday. You know what that is? Sobriety Stories. So, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories and just the power of sobriety, the power of God looking down on you and keeping his hand of protection over you. So, when I met my wife, we were both sober. We both had numerous years of sobriety. 6 months after she and I got married, it had become very apparent that she had relapsed. And in a 2 month time frame, she basically did a swan dive into self destruction. A lot of anger through that. I did get her into rehab and I sent her away for a 90-day rehab. Now, the time that she was away, I was dealing with a lot of the anger and resentment towards her, but through a lot of men that I surround myself with and them giving me perspective, I was able to get rid of a lot of that anger and really support my bride. She finished her 90 days, came out a completely different person, and was really chasing growth and working on her sobriety. But I was still dealing with some of the residual anger, working through it myself, continuing to just work through it, just work through it. 6 months after she got out of rehab, she and I took a trip to Cabo. And my wife and I very seldom argue. We have a really good relationship, even then. But we were in Cabo, and there was something, there was something that happened that triggered some of that old resentment, and I got really angry at her. And it was one of those things where I just wanted to be away from her. But we were in Cabo, so I went up and I jumped in the car. We had rented a car, and I just wanted to get away for a bit. As I'm about to pull out, she runs up, gets in the car, and goes, "I'm going with you." So, whatever. So we start driving away, and instead of going right into the town of Cabo, we took a left, which we'd never gone before, and just started to drive. I just needed to clear my head. So we're driving in the middle of Mexico, and it's starting to get really, really broken down part of Mexico to where, man, it was like the barrio, and it was just super sketch. And our phones were no longer working. So now MapQuest on our phones weren't even working. So we were literally stuck in a very broken down part of Mexico. And it was definitely sketchy. And I'm now with my wife. And now I'm like, this is crazy. And we weren't able to get back because we couldn't get directions on get back. So we were getting lost. So as we were driving, my wife says, "Stop." And I'm like, "What?" She's all, "Back up." So I back up and we look, and there's a statue that's covered with trees, so you could barely see it. But in the statue was an AA sign pointing down this alley. And she's like, "Let's go there." And I'm like, "Oh man." So I kind of pull back and look towards this alley. We were going to drive down this broken alley. Like all the road was all broken. It was just super sketchy. But I decided to go down it, and we started driving down this road, potholes everywhere. Just it was just like I said, a broken down part of Mexico. And then we see this place. It was this house that had a big AA sign. So we park and we both walk up there, kind of timidly walking up because it didn't seem like anybody was there. And as we walked to the front, we could see about five people sitting on the side of this house, just kind of talking. So I walk up and I say, "Hey man, we're from California. We're both sober. We saw the AA sign, blah, blah, blah." Just start kind of talking with this guy. And there was one guy out of the five, one who had about, broken English that we could get to the point where we could at least communicate. And he said, "We're about to have a meeting. Would you like to attend?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course. We're both sober. Let's do this." So my wife and I sat in on a meeting in Mexico with there was I think 7 or 8 of us, and everybody spoke. It was a 2-hour meeting with 8 people. Everybody spoke for like 20 minutes. And the raddest part of that is they all spoke in Spanish. I have no idea what they said. You could hear the passion in them. Like these people were basically in a rehab. This AA was some type of a rehab. They lived there. And but man, Many of them got up and just you could hear some of them cried as they spoke because they were broken, but you could tell they were starting to put their life back and they were seeking growth. And my wife and I attended this meeting for 2 hours in Spanish. We didn't know what they said. When we got up and spoke, we spoke in English. They didn't know what we said. But because of the common goal of growth and conquering addiction, we understood. And to this day, I've gone to numerous meetings in my life, and to this day, it is my by far my favorite meeting because it didn't matter if there was a language barrier. We connected through love. We connected through trying to better ourselves and just people that are seeking sobriety and trying to do better. One of my favorite stories, as you can imagine, my wife and I walked out of that meeting holding hands, kissing each other, and we weren't thinking about any of the arguments that we were talking about, just a few hours earlier. So I say it all the time. God knows what He's doing. God brought us there. And to this day, like I said, it's one of my favorite meetings, man. And we even have pictures. We took a bunch of pictures with them, and they're pretty cool, man. Pictures of just that day, that experience, those people that we met. And in that AA, you could see uh, just AA stuff all over. It was all in Spanish, but what a unique experience, man. Let me in on this. God knows what He's doing. I hope that you enjoyed my sobriety story. That's all I got.